Good evening, parents and aspiring Academy applicants. My name is Travis Whittick. I'm the Academy Endeavors. Simply put, tonight, I'm here to help you get into the Academy. Getting into West Point, the Naval Academy, or the Air Force Academy is an absolute game changer. It was for my life. I'm extremely thankful for the ways the Academy shaped me, gave me a head start in life. And now our goal at Academy Endeavors is to give this opportunity away to as many people as possible, elevate applicants and families to get their dream so that you can also get a significant head start in life. So in order to do that tonight, we are going to strive to give you the truth. And here's the challenge that lies ahead of you. This is the most complex college admissions process in the country. It's not even close. In the past, before we specialized in academies, we helped young people through the Ivy League application process. All right, the Ivy League doesn't even come close to the complexities of the Academy application process. And I'll give you 3 reasons why. First, the Service Academy application process is longer from start to finish, but from the time they open up applications to the time they notify applicants, it's about 15 months. The process is a lot longer. Second, the Service Academy application process is much more complex. There's more requirements. They're the only colleges in the country that require a nomination. They're the only application process in the country that requires an intrusive medical process called DODMERB. They're the only college application process that requires a fitness component. One of the few colleges that still require an SAT or an ACT. Strap yourself on for the ride because it is long, it's complex, and lastly, third, it's intensely competitive. We are fighting over a very few amount of slots. I can geek out with you on the math here. I'll just do it at a high level. There's about a 10% acceptance rate. So that means just quick math, 10,000 people apply, 1,000 people are around there are going to get in. Why is this? Just give you 2 reasons. Congress has mandated that there only be a certain amount of slots given away per year. So they've capped it. So whereas colleges can just increase their enrollment, academies cannot. And second is, say there's about 1,200 offers every year, appointment offers. 35% of those are taken up by recruited athletes, enlisted, and prep school. So if you're a high school student trying to get directly in, 35% of the slots are off the board. Now you're fighting over the 65%. That's why it's so competitive. There's just not that many slots to go around. And guys, I remember being in your shoes 20 years ago. I understand. I've been there. I knew next to nothing about this process back in the day. But now we've been coaching Academy applicants for many years. And we've had a great success rate. So here's the good news. If you listen tonight, you block out distraction and listen to what we're about to tell you, I'm 100% confident that you'll significantly increase your chances of getting in. Okay, for the last 5 years, our success rate has been 83% of getting people an Academy appointment. 10% chance increased to 83% chance. We're proud of that. So here's what we ask of you. Take notes. Get out an old-fashioned pen and paper. A lot of what we say is not going to be on the slides. We're not going to PowerPoint you to death tonight. Most of what we say won't be just directly written down. We're going to take a picture of it, okay? And second, ask questions at the end. You aren't going to get your dream by sitting back, so engage. Get the clarification you need tonight. Get a return on investment for your time. So what are we going to do tonight? Okay, 5 things. First, a timeline, all right, that we believe is more clear than anything else out there. Second, we're going to share a framework. We call it the Academy framework. It's the eligible, competitive, and qualified steps to get an Academy appointment. You have to have all 3, eligible, competitive, and qualified. And in the process, we're going to give you a clear picture of this crazy process, clearer than you've ever seen before. We're going to address the common myths that we hear over and over again. And we're going to share best practices for how you can maximize your chances. And then we're going to do live Q&A at the end. Now, warning, if this goes longer than the assigned amount of time on your and I's calendar, we're just going to keep going, okay? Because I know someone out there is dying to know this info, and it's going to change someone's life tonight. So we're going to keep going. And I have a feeling we might go over, and if we do, I forewarned you. So first is the timeline slide. On the left-hand side, you will see the academies on top in blue. Congressional nominations or the nomination requirements in yellow. The ROTC applications requirements in green. We put these buckets in one slide because we got frustrated that nobody else had done that. And all of our clients are working with these 3 buckets, and they're all different deadlines. It drives them nuts. And so we need to clarify this. The deadlines are in the vertical red. For Academy, Congressional, and ROTC, you notice they're all over the map and they're all different. Okay, that's because all 3 buckets, Academy, Nomination, ROTC, have vastly different application processes. All right, Academies are rolling admissions, nominations are traditional, and ROTC is boards. Very different from each other. You'll notice the official applications open over the summer going into your senior year in all 3 buckets. Last year, West Point Naval Academy applications opened around June 1st. USAFA Air Force Academy opened on July 1st. Your nomination sources, it's all over the map. It depends on where you live. Most likely they're going to open up around May. Okay, and then their deadlines will be sometime in the fall. We've seen as early as August 31st or September, as late as December. You have to verify it on your congressman or senator's websites. After the Academy application is open, you can turn in your application at any point before the deadline. It's rolling admissions. Typically, Academy interviews are going to be after you turn in your application in the fall with your liaison officers. Okay, Air Force Academy is called an ALO. Naval Academy is called a BGO. And West Point is called a field force rep. You're going to have 1 interview per academy. After you turn it in, you're also going to have to go through the DODMERB process. That's the process to get medically cleared. So whereas the majority of colleges, when you turn in your application, you're done and you just wait. What's so frustrating and so time consuming about the Academy application process is it seems like it never ends, because when you turn in your application, that's only half the battle. You still have interviews, you still have the nominations, and you still have the DODMERB process. Okay? And the Academy's goal is to notify everyone before April 15th. Okay, there's a few exceptions, but most of the time it's April 15th or earlier. And if all goes well, you will report to basic training at the end of June. We put this in here just to show the college admissions process. That's how easy it is. Right? So this to this, it's not even close. Just do the Common App and you're done. Very simple. All right, this not so much. But that's if all goes well, you report at the end of June, and that's a big if. Okay, in order to get the coveted appointment, you must be eligible, competitive, and qualified. You have to be all 3. That's what's so difficult about this process. You can't just do 1 or 2 things well. It all has to go right. One ding can sink the ship. So the 3 questions are you eligible? How competitive are you? And are you qualified? All right, so now we're going to dive into each one of those, starting with, are you eligible? So first, to get into the Academy, you must be eligible. There's 4 aspects there on your screen. You must be a U.S. citizen. You must be at least 17, no more than 22, on July 1st of the summer you matriculate. Third, you must have no dependents, no spouse, no kids. And fourth, you must have good moral character. Now, frequently asked questions we get on this. Question, I'm not a U.S. citizen, but I want to go to the Air Force Academy. Can I still apply? Answer, if you're not a U.S. citizen, yes, you can still apply, but you have to go through your country's Ministry of Defense and apply as a foreign national. There's only 15 slots per year to each academy. Another question we get on this. I'm a college senior and just realized I want to go to the academy. Can I still apply? Answer, if you turn 23 before you matriculate by July 1st of the year, then you're too old. If not, then yes, you can apply. 3, get this a lot. I live overseas. I don't live in the U.S., but I am a U.S. citizen. Can I still apply? Yes, overseas U.S. citizens can still apply. The challenge, if you're listening to this and you're an overseas U.S. citizen, is where do you have residency? If you still have residency in the U.S., then you're eligible for your congressman and your senator nomination. If you do not have residency, if you're not domiciled in the U.S., you're only eligible for the vice presidential nomination, and that's extremely competitive. They only give out 1 slot per year per academy. So that's the big question there. Now, if you live overseas and you're not a U.S. citizen, go back to question number 1. My parents are not U.S. citizens, but I am a U.S. citizen. Can I still apply? Yes, you meet the criteria. Yes, you're eligible. Number 4, I broke a law or had a minor infraction, or I experimented with marijuana in high school. It was a dumb decision. I didn't do it again. Can I still apply? The answer, most likely yes. We've had clients confess to that. For example, experimenting with marijuana in high school. They've been asked to write a personal statement regarding their situation. Okay, admissions reviews the story, makes a determination, and depending on the severity of the situation and the remorse of the applicant, it can be viewed favorably. Bottom line, I would not let an infraction stop you from at least attempting to apply. Let them tell you no, go through the process. But please know, the Academy has their processes in place to ask those questions, so be honest. Okay, there are a few places they're going to ask that. USAFA has something called a Form 2030. They're going to ask you that right up front in the ALO interview. Naval Academy asks it clear as day on the application. Navy ROTC asks as a form as well. You have an SF-86 form for your security clearance. Please be honest on that. Do yourself a favor. And then DODMERB, the medical process in question 100, also asks if you've broken any law or have illegal drug use or alcohol abuse in your history. Now, what is the tool or process the academies use to determine eligibility? Does anyone know? It's the pre-application. Academies are the only colleges that have a pre-application before the actual application. You must complete the pre-application before you can even be an official candidate. And you'll see West Point calls it the candidate questionnaire. Naval Academy calls it the preliminary application. USAFA calls it the PCQ, the pre-candidate questionnaire. I think they've all determined to call it something differently just to make it more complex and confusing. They all serve the exact same purpose, which is to verify eligibility and advance you from pre-candidate phase to candidate phase. All right, so being eligible is the first step. And for 90% of you on this call, most likely, being eligible is a given, and it doesn't take any work, okay? But whether you're competitive or not takes a ton of work. So let's talk about that. So here we go. You need to know something. The Academy quantifies everything you do, whether it's your transcript, your SAT score, athletics, extracurricular activities, leadership positions, community involvement. Everything goes into a quantification algorithm to give you a candidate score. The higher the candidate score, the more competitive you are. And these are the three buckets. And the most important factor to determine your competitiveness is your academics. It accounts for at least 50% of your candidate score. West Point calls it your whole candidate score. Naval Academy calls it your whole person multiple. Air Force Academy calls it your selection composite score. Once again, trying to make it more confusing, it's very, very similar. They care about these three buckets here. But in each one, whether we're talking West Point, Annapolis, Air Force Academy, academics is the foundation and comprises the most points. And in academics, they break it into two components, your SAT or ACT score and your transcript. Okay, contrary to most colleges, Annapolis, West Point, Air Force Academy, they require the SAT, ACT, like we said earlier. In fact, it's actually the largest single component in the candidate score. Not just fun fact, something you need to act on. All right, we're going to break this down even further. Your SAT, ACT breaks down into math and verbal, right? You got your math and science, science if you're taking the ACT, math if you're just in the SAT, and then your English and reading or your verbal score. Also, the Academy's super score. What does that mean? That means they let you combine your highest math and your highest verbal scores regardless of your test date. This incentivizes you to take it early and often so that you can combine your best score. That's powerful. All right, so the biggest problems we see, waiting too long to get started on prioritizing the SAT and ACT. Second, giving up too soon. And third, simply not prioritizing it enough. Many worry about their grades too much. They get wrapped up in what's in front of them, and they lose sight of actually the single most important factor in their candidate score. So these are the common things we hear in our coaching sessions. Quote, I'll wait until my senior year SAT prep class is done, and then I'll take the SAT when I'm ready. There is never a perfect time to take the SAT and ACT. If you wait around for the perfect time, all you're doing is procrastinating, and it may cost you. Quoted myth here. I don't want to take the test yet because I don't want the Academy to see a low score. Answer. Academies only see your super score, your highest math and highest verbal combined. So delaying is only hurting you from getting started and getting a baseline. Okay, growth mindset over perfectionism. Oftentimes, it benefits you more to take it more times because then you learn the timing, you learn how to take the test. So don't delay because you're worried they're going to see a low score. Get started and then improve. I've taken it twice. I'm pretty satisfied with my 1270, or I'm pretty satisfied with my 27 on the ACT. Okay, you are likely giving up too soon. Why? You said you took it twice in this case, and you said you got a 1270, which is significantly below the mean. The mean at West Point last year was a 1320. The mean at Naval Academy and Air Force Academy was a 1380. We've seen significant jumps in people's scores after the third, fourth, fifth time. If you're settling before even getting to the mean, you're giving up too soon because it's too important. By the way, those means I just mentioned are with recruited athletes' scores factored in. And no offense to recruited athletes, okay, I was one. They bring down the mean on average. Your goal should be to be higher than the mean. 1400 or higher SAT and 32 or higher ACT. All right, last one. I haven't really been studying for the SAT or ACT because I have too much schoolwork to do. Very common, 100% valid, but you got to remember two things. First, which is worth more points on your candidate score, your SAT or transcript? And second, there are times when you don't have schoolwork, such as summer break, such as winter break, such as perhaps a 2-hour break during the weekend. Those are times when you should be fitting in SAT prep. So don't do it in place of, do it additive to, and fit it into the nooks and crannies of your schedule. The takeaway here is it's too important not to take prep seriously because it matters too much. And this is not forever. There's a magic window where you need to hit it hard. You're going to hit it hard for 6 to 9 months, maybe 12 months. You're going to get the super score you want, and you're going to move on. So it's a temporary hurdle on path to getting your dream. Next, the transcript. Newsflash. Just a high GPA isn't good enough to earn an academy appointment. It's a lot more than just your grades, as you see in the 4 things there. It comes down to 4 things. First, your class rank matters a lot because it shows your performance compared to your peers. Listen to this, because this is about half the people on this call. Even if your school doesn't do a class rank, your guidance counselor knows your class rank. Okay? It's in the computer. They're masking it, and they're going to be asked to unmask it to the academies when they submit your transcript. So just know that, and at least ask, set up an in-person meeting with your guidance counselor and ask what decile you're in. Are you in the top 10, top 20? I would say top 20 is a must, top 10 is the goal, top 5 even better. Second, your course difficulty. All right? Getting A's in regular level classes is actually going to put you at a disadvantage. All right? Did you take advanced classes, and if so, how many? How did you challenge yourself? That will be clear. Third, the competitiveness of your school. This is out of your control, okay? But the academies will factor that in. Being the top 5% in a top-ranked huge school or elite school is going to be more impressive than being top 5 at a low-performing school or a small school. It's just a factor. All right, and fourth, your performance in specific classes. The 5 most important classes on your transcript are chemistry, physics, and biology, which are the core lab sciences that, oh, by the way, you will take at the academy. That's why they pay attention to it. And then pre-calculus and calculus. Those are the 5. Your performance in those will go much further than your performance in band. No offense, but it's going to go much further than ceramics, Latin, right? Some of these random classes that you might have got an A in and it factored into your GPA. Okay, so they have a way of figuring this out and putting it in their algorithm. Now, a lot of people tell us, my GPA is almost perfect. I think I'm good to go there with my GPA. It's pretty high. Now you know that isn't necessarily true. Your transcript is so much more than just one number. All right, so academics is the foundation of a competitive applicant. But what may make or break you is what we're going to talk about next. And that's also what the academy holds nearest and dearest to its heart. And that's leadership. West Point, Naval Academy, Air Force Academy have the same stated mission. Develop leaders of character. It's their brand. It's their reputation. They have a long history of doing that successfully. Your leadership score has 2 components. Your athletics activity score and your extracurricular activity score, or your non-athletics. So when you break it down even further, let's look at this. Let's look at athletic activities. There's 3 main inputs: number of sports, number of years varsity, and number of years as team captain. If you just know those, if you know the three variables, you can maximize the higher your score is going to be. Now, we get this question a lot. What about club sports? Okay, and our answer is competitive clubs count as varsity equivalent. Club rugby, club swimming, club soccer counts as varsity equivalent. In addition, a black belt in martial arts is varsity equivalent. Another question we get, what if I haven't played a sport yet? Can I still get accepted to an academy? Truth is, you significantly hurt your chances, but it's not impossible. We've had a handful of clients who were exceptional in everything else, that's the key word, but didn't play a sport, and they still got in. Okay, doing worse in one area means you have to be more exceptional in every area of this framework. Okay, another common one. I haven't played a sport yet. Is it too late for me? And the answer, no. We've had clients late in the game go out for other sports in high school and make varsity. Typically lower-ish skill sports such as track and field or cross country, or non-traditional varsity sports that have lower participation and less competition, like maybe varsity skiing or varsity badminton. We've also had clients go out for club sports in the community, such as rugby or mountain biking. The point is, don't let athletic activities be blank on your application if you can help it, and extra points if you can make an impression on your coach and be a team captain. That is the ultimate goal in athletic activities. Which leads me to my last question we get a lot. What if my coach doesn't have team captains? And our response to that is, see if your coach will make an exception. The worst they can say is no. Give your coaches context for why you're asking the question. Coach, I want to go to an academy. I want to lead. I don't know a single coach that wouldn't be impressed with that. Spin it to the positive. Tell them you want to make a bigger impact on the team and practice more leadership skills because you want to prepare to serve your country one day. Once again, a young person with that mindset is a breath of fresh air to a coach. So at least approach them and ask. Now that we've covered athletic activities, let's discuss and switch over to extracurricular activities. What are the three things the Academy wants? And it's leadership, leadership, leadership. They are obsessed with it. I'll give you a point. We did a study going back 5 years of all the clients we've coached who were accepted and ones that were not over the last 5 years. When we looked at their resume, the ones who didn't get in had an average of 1.8 significant leadership roles on the resume. 1.8. The ones who did get in, 4.9 significant leadership roles on the resume. That's insane. Leadership sells to these schools that you're applying to. So many people ask us, I'm the officer of XYZ club. How many points is it worth? Answer, while nobody knows the exact number of points. Yeah, that's 5 points, and that's 6 points, and that's 3.2. I don't know that. Only the Academy knows that. It's proprietary. But we do know the components of significant leadership roles, and they're here on this slide. The best leadership roles are in the recognizable organizations. Okay, if the Naval Academy's never heard of XYZ Club, it's going to be a harder sell compared to leading something like Key Club, which is a national organization, been around for years. So first, recognizable. Second, selective. The more selective, i.e. if it's an elected position, it's inherently more selective if it's elected, the more points. All right, and peer-led. Example, if you're leading second graders as a camp counselor, that's not as valuable nor as applicable to the military as leading peers in your student council club, for example. All right, people ask us, which activities should I get involved in? Or said another way, should I switch from activity A to activity B, whatever it is? Okay, my answer is usually the same. It's a question right back at them. Which ones have leadership roles available? What's the time commitment? Because time is money. And third, how likely is it to get a leadership role there? All right, so if you're considering switching activities, how likely is it to get a leadership role? Is there even one available to begin with? And then what's the time commitment? What's the cost, okay, that you're going to have to pay to be involved? All right, likelihood is if you were to pick all activities that have leadership roles but have not as much time commitment, you could do more of them and thus have more leadership roles. So bottom line, get on the leadership path. Don't just be a member. If you're going to do it, lead it. Eventually, if you're a freshman or sophomore on this call, the goal is eventually when you're a junior or senior, you are in that leadership role. Build off of what you are already doing. Prove yourself over time and then get elevated to a bigger role from the decision maker, the commander, the teacher sponsor, whoever is that making those calls. You can also create your own club on campus, and thus you are inherently a founder or president of that club. So that's something our clients have done as well. Now what I want to do is I want to go to the top of the pyramid. I want to talk to you about the selection panel. score, okay? Selection panel breaks down into 3 components: your essays, your interview score, and your recommendations. And I want to address a common misconception right now that you might be getting from what I just said earlier about the algorithm that quantifies everything you do. You remember when I said that? Ultimately, the algorithm does not determine whether you get into the academy. It is not the final call. If I have 7,432 points on my candidate score and you have 7,231, that automatically doesn't mean I'm getting in and you're not, because the academies have admissions boards with people. There are 18 to 20 people from West Point, Annapolis, Air Force Academy that meet weekly during the admission cycles, and they determine and they vote on the applications that come through, whether you are accepted for direct entry, whether you are rejected, or whether you are recommended for prep school. Okay, there's 3 boxes they can check. So computers don't get you in, don't make the final determination. People do. So let's look at each of these components: essays, interviews, and recommendations in greater detail. All right, so first, essays. On average, get this, you're going to have 13 essays to write. Okay, that's for average client that we have. How do we get that number? From the typical client is applying to 2 academies, 2 ROTC scholarships, and then your congressman and senator nominations. Okay, that's a lot of writing. West Point has 3 500-word essays. Naval Academy has 1 4,000 character essay and 5 short answer essays. USAFA has 3 500-word essays. Your congressman will likely have at least 1 essay. Each senator will likely have at least 1 essay. So common myth that we're seeing lately with essays: I'll be fine. ChatGPT, AI is going to help me with this. This is going to be no problem. No. No. If you want AI to write generic garbage for you, then go right ahead. But if you want personal, compelling essays, then it must be your own work, because ChatGPT doesn't know your personal story like you do. They don't know you. They only know what is out there on the internet. Furthermore, the academies prohibit AI tools for writing essays, so you'd be breaking the honor code anyways before you even got in to the academy. So the 3 main types of essay questions we see are there on your screen: the why essays, character essays, and achievement essays. We're going to go through each of these. All right, examples of why essays. Why do you want to attend West Point? That's an essay. That could be an essay question. Or another one: describe what led to your initial interest in the Naval Academy and what led you to want to pursue naval service. That's a why question. In order to ace the why questions, you must be personal. Here's the test. If they swapped out someone else's name at the top of the essay, would it still make sense? Make it so personal, have so many details that it couldn't be anyone else's. Specific. Your why answers must be specific. Make it so specific to the academy that it couldn't be an ROTC essay. It couldn't be another college, because it's so specific to the academy you're applying to. That's specific. And then third, passionate. Write in an enthusiastic tone, similar to how I'm talking to you right now, okay? Prove to them you care. And have it include examples that show your passion, such as visiting the academy, going to summer seminar, interviewing an alum or a current cadet or midshipman. Be passionate. All right, examples of character essays. Describe an ethical dilemma you have faced. How did you resolve it, and what did you learn about yourself? Or describe a setback in your life. What steps you took to address it, and what you learned about your character as a result of this challenge. Those are character questions. For character essays, you must, 3 things: communicate concise stories that reveal your self-awareness. Got to be concise. Can't be rambling on. Got to get to the point, get in and get out. You don't have that much time. You don't have that much space, not that many words to use. Second, reveals core values they're looking for: integrity, courage, service. This is what these academies love to see. Okay, you want to pick stories that reveal the core values. And then third, it's written in a thoughtful, reflective tone. Last type, achievement. Here's an example. Describe a leadership experience that was meaningful to you. What were your responsibilities, accomplishments, and learnings? Or describe what your typical week looks like and how you organize your time to accomplish your tasks. In order to ace your achievement questions, your essays must, again, choose stories that showcase your strongest attributes and have a concrete result. Don't give them a cliffhanger. Give them a concrete result of what you accomplished. Have them reveal fit qualities that see you as fit, so that it reveals your leadership potential. And then third, written in a humble but confident tone. If you approach your essays hitting on the key points that we just discussed, you will crush your essays. If you want to know what we do for our clients so they can knock their essays out of the park, we give them suggested outlines for each prompt. We show them samples of success from prior clients who've earned appointments, and then we edit their first draft to perfection. Interviews. You will have, on average, 7 interviews. Typical client has 7 interviews. What would that look like? Well, you're going to have a field force rep interview for West Point, a BGO interview for Naval Academy, an ALO interview for Air Force Academy, 1 interview for each ROTC scholarship you apply to as a backup, 1 interview for your congressman office, 1 interview for each of your senator's offices. Typical client is applying to about 2 academies, 2 ROTCs, and then nomination sources. That's where it's about 7, give or take. Depends on how many applications, but that's a lot of freaking interviews. The number one problem that we hear with interviews is the old advice that's just nonsense. Just be yourself. There's a problem with the typical 17-year-old just being themselves in an interview. The typical 17-year-old is, in the eyes of a 50-year-old veteran, immature and unprofessional. I can assure you, when you are nervous and you don't know what's coming, just be yourself won't work. So if you want to be successful in interviews, you must do many things well, but if I had to pick 3, here's what they are, okay? You must communicate personal stories concisely. We help our clients do this by following a framework called STAR. For every story, we recommend you write out situation, task, action, result. Situation, task, action, result, to make sure it is concise, okay, and has a concrete result, and it also explains what you did to solve the problem or overcome the challenge. You must demonstrate professionalism, right? Professional appearance, avid use of sir and ma'am. No hey, no, yeah, no yas and heys, none of that. It's sir and ma'am. This isn't high school anymore, and you're not viewed as a teenager. You're viewed as an officer candidate. That is a mindset switch that you have to get in your head. They're not viewing you as a teenager. They're viewing you as an officer candidate. Professionalism. Second point on number 2 is credible enthusiasm to serve. Speak with an enthusiastic tone. You have to highlight examples that make it credible. The number one question, listen to this. This is not on the slide. The number one question the interviewer is thinking in the back of his mind. I used to be one, by the way. I used to be an ALO. And I used to interview candidates. This was the number one question I had in the back of my mind. You ready? Does this candidate know what the hell they're getting themselves into? Does this candidate know what the hell they're getting themselves into? Okay, because the academy is a different place. By highlighting examples that reveal credibility, whether you visited the academy, you went to summer seminar, you went to summer STEM, you interviewed with an alum, you talked to a grad, right? You talked to a current cadet or midshipman, right? You did a bunch of research online. You build credibility with the interviewer that you're excited about the academy, and that excitement, you have a realistic perception of what it's actually like. That's big, all right? And you must, third, reveal character and leadership qualities through story. I cannot emphasize what I'm about to say enough. Telling the academy that you have high character isn't good enough. They're not just going to take your word for it. Would you? No, you wouldn't. You have to choose a story that reveals your character. You can't just tell the academy I'm a great leader. That's not good enough. You have to choose a story that reveals it. Show, not tell. Prove it through story. If you want an example of what this looks like and how we at Academy Endeavors prepare our clients for the interview process, for going through the most nerve-wracking interviews of their life. Okay. First thing we do is we give them this interview guide that has the frequently asked questions on it, the top 20 frequently asked questions. Then we hold them accountable to write out their answers to each of these 20 questions, and we nudge them on what the A+ answers are. Okay. Then we proofread and edit their answers before their first mock interview. Then we give them written and on-the-spot feedback during mock 1. And then we do another mock 2, so that they can crush it and approach their official interviews with confidence and be better prepared than any other applicant in their district. I'm giving you a picture of what we do. If you're choosing to do it yourself alone, at least mimic that. Okay, and we're going to give you a few free giveaways at the end of this call to help get you started, to help get you on that path. Next, we need to talk about the third aspect of the selection panel score, and that is recommendations. On average, I said earlier, you're going to have 18 recommendations to obtain. How do we get this? Well, West Point has 3 mandatory recommendations. They call them school official evaluations. All right. Naval Academy has 3 mandatory, 2 optionals. That's 5 total. Air Force Academy has 3 mandatory and 2 optional. The mandatory ones are usually teachers, math and English. Your congressmen and senators will also require most likely 2 to 3 recommendations. Okay, and then with ROTC included, that puts the number very high, as you can tell. Your recommenders are going to submit your academy applications, listen to this, online. Okay, they're going to answer questions about your character, your leadership, your academic ability, and their discipline. And then they're going to write up something about you, telling the academy how you'll excel in their area of expertise. Now, here's the myth we hear often. Recommendations are just a check in the box. They don't matter that much. No, recommendations are the only opportunity academies have to hear from a third party about your character, leadership, and academic ability. Think about it. Your essays are coming from you. Your interview is coming from you. All right? This is a third party vouching for your character and leadership. Choose wisely and ensure your recommenders know that this could be the difference. There are many steps to obtaining recommendations that are going to help you win at this process. But if I had to pick 3, they're there on your screen. First, identify your champions. Identify your champions. If given a choice, you got to choose recommenders that love you, that want to champion your cause. Okay, they love the military. They want to help you. Don't give people a chance to hurt you if you know they don't like you or you have a harmed relationship with them, if it's within your control. Second, spoon feed your recommenders your accomplishments. Listen, guys, they're doing you a favor. Make it easy on them to help you. Make it clear what they need to do and by when. Give them a deadline. Tell them the steps. Give them the tools to do it and do it easily. And then third, you got 18 of these to follow up with. Follow up in person. Emails don't work with busy people. They just get ignored. Follow up in person until it's complete. And it's only complete when it says it on the application that it's complete. Not when you said, oh, I sent them an email, so it's complete. No, it's not complete until you've seen it green on the app, period. How do we do this at Academy Endeavors? We do a recommender matrix, and that allows us to brainstorm together with the client a scoring matrix for possible recommenders to help us decide which recommenders are the best fit. All right. Then second, we give the recommenders the exact requirements that each application needs and by which date. And then third, we give a sample. We have samples, which is not here on your screen, but samples of great recommendations and example email templates to help get your recommender to give you the best recommendation possible. Looking at this framework one more time, how competitive are you? The answer will be determined by how strong your academics are, by how strong your leadership is, by how strong your selection panel score is. The more competitive you are in these facets, the higher chance you have of getting admitted. Now that we've covered this in terms of becoming more competitive, we've got to move on to how to get qualified. West Point calls this the triple Q, which means triple qualified. Navy also, they don't call it that, but Navy has something in their application on the right side banner that shows green, yellow, or red. And it's these 3 exact things. These 3 aspects are must-haves. You either have it or you don't. You either pass your candidate fitness test, that's what CFA stands for, or you don't and your application is closed and you're done. You either have the nomination or you don't, and the best you can hope for is a prep school slot. You either get medically cleared or you can't be awarded an appointment prep school or ROTC. It's game over if you're not medically cleared. So let's start with the candidate fitness assessment. There are 6 events, as you can see on your screen. The basketball throw, pull-ups, shuttle run, sit-ups, push-ups, 1 mile run. And we probably have the #1 CFA video on the internet right now about how to do each event. So go to YouTube, type in CFA Academy Endeavors. There's great tips on there on how to max your score. Okay, so we're not going to be able to go into each one and show tips. That's a whole live event of its own. But it's honestly better to just watch that YouTube video because we're there at the track. We're doing all the events. Now, we hear this over and over again. My daughter's an athlete. We'll be fine on the CFA. But then once they do the mock, they realize how gassed they are doing 6 events back to back to back in succession with only a few minutes rest in between. And then they fail one of the events. Well, guys, if you fail one event, you failed the whole thing. You have to pass every single event to pass the thing. So you actually weren't fine at all. You failed, right? Another thing we hear all the time. My son is a cross-country runner. We got this, right? And then they're in for a rude awakening because they fail the push-ups and the pull-ups because it's not just running. You got to have upper body strength too. Overconfidence is going to kill you in this process, one way or the other. Okay? So what's the solution, Travis? First, you need to do a mock CFA at home with a parent. Do the mock CFA, find out where you're at, do the events to the standard. There's a right way to do a pull-up and a wrong way to do a pull-up. Don't count it unless it's the right way. You went all the way down and all the way up. Same with the mile run. Don't count it if you're running around your neighborhood. It's got to be at a track. That measures exactly a mile. Not one that's downhill the whole time. So yes, on top of everything else you have going on, I'm asking you to do a mock CFA. Right? But second, you're going to have to be consistent at training for these events. You can't just do it one time. A lot of applicants struggle being consistent because they're in sports and their sport doesn't help them with the CFA at all. Football, I was a football player. Being in the weight room doesn't help you with pull-ups, like zero. It might actually hurt you. You're going to need to manage your time accordingly to maximize your score. And your score does matter. You can't just pass. That's not the right approach. You want to max all the events. And there is a min and there is a max. And the higher your CFA score goes, it goes back to that competitive triangle and it goes to the top of the selection composite score. Okay, so it's in both categories. You got to pass it, but you want to max it to get as many points as you can in that competitive triangle that we just talked about. So let's move on, talk about the nomination and what it takes to get qualified. I wish we had time to dive into every single detail on the nomination. That is a whole presentation on its own. And there's 2 great YouTube videos we have out there. One that's like 45 minutes long, another one that's like 30 minutes long. But I want to hit on 3 things regarding the nomination. First, we hear this all the time. I think I have an in with my congressman. So there's a huge perception problem out there with nominations. Most people think you earn nominations based on networking. In reality, you earn nominations by having a kick-ass application and interview. Take a look at this slide. 90% of your success is dependent on the strength of your application, not just knowing the right person. It might used to be that way back in the day. It's not anymore. I can assure you of that. Second, the most common deadline missed is with congressmen and senators. Why? Because they're all different. That's why step 1 is find your congressmen and senators' applications on their websites and find out when the deadlines are, because they're all over the place. Every deadline's different, and if you bust a deadline, trust me, there is no mercy for you. It's over. And last slide we're going to talk about with nominations. Federal Title X law states you need a nomination to get into the academy, but it doesn't say congressional nomination. I'm going to say that again. Federal Title X law states you need a nomination. It's required. It doesn't say you have to have a congressional nomination, and I'm showing you this slide because there might be people out there that fall into one of the 15% category on this slide. If one of your parents served in the military, you might be eligible for the presidential nomination. If you are in JROTC right now, or college ROTC, or you're enlisted, there could be an eligible nomination source for you, and that could be your ticket in. I want you and expect our clients to apply to every nomination source that they're eligible for. That is the wise way to go. For medical, there is a lot to this process. Okay, I put the top 4 rocks, biggest rocks to the DODMERB process: the questionnaire, attending the exams, submitting additional medical information, which is AMI, and then fighting for a waiver. if you need to. But I want to start by telling you another myth we hear all the time, which is we have conversations with families and they say, my son is healthy and active. He's involved in sports. Like, he's just super healthy. So DODMERB is not going to be a concern. And my answer is, just because your son is healthy now doesn't mean issues didn't pop up in his medical history, because DODMERB covers your entire medical history since birth. Okay? So this isn't just a school physical or a sports physical where they make sure everything's working right now. This goes into your past since you were born. And there's 113 questions on the DODMERB medical history questionnaire. So it's very in-depth. And there's a reason why 20% of applicants are medically disqualified and in need of a waiver. Okay? There actually are 8 phases in total, starting with phase 1, which is completing your academy application. Just so you know, DODMERB doesn't start until you first get a majority of the application done. Phase 2, doing your questionnaire and DODMETs and attending your exams. Phase 3, waiting for DODMERB to process your paperwork. Phase 4, submitting additional medical information if necessary. Phase 5, getting notified whether you're qualified. And then phase 6, 7, and 8 is optional and only applies to those that are disqualified. But in between, there's a lot of stress and unknowns, all of which are entirely dependent on your specific situation. If you're the 20% of the applicants that need a waiver, the process can take up to 10 months. Most medical waiver decisions are at the very end of the process, if you remember our timeline slide. So it adds a lot of stress. I highly recommend you watch our DODMERB strategies to get medically qualified video on YouTube, because it's really informative, has about 4,000 views. And as a thank you for joining this presentation, another free giveaway we're going to do is we're going to give you the 113 questions that DODMERB asks, so that you can start preparing for the process now and you can self-diagnose, so to speak, which conditions might be disqualifying. Looking back, here is all the steps to get qualified. And here is the Academy framework, looking at it from eligible to competitive to qualified to the appointment. Now, remember where we started this journey on the timeline slide. One thing I did not talk to you about is that green line. Anybody notice that? The vertical green line. Okay? That is a recommended turn-in date for your Academy applications. It is critical that you turn in your application early. Why? Well, there's several reasons, but I'm going to give you 3. First, letters of assurance. LOAs, letters of assurance, are the Academy's version of early acceptance. They give you a limited amount of LOAs for the cream of the crop each year. They give them to the cream of the crop each year, which secures their seat in the class contingent upon a nomination and medical clearance. If you turn in your application early, you maximize your chances of an LOA. If you wait until the day before the deadline, which most young people do, then you forfeit the opportunity. Number 2, busy senior year. Guys, you don't understand how busy you're going to be your senior year. You think you're busy right now. The fall semester of your senior year, you'll be the busiest time of your life. If you can get this done before you start school, huge peace of mind, because fall of your senior year is going to be crazy, because your leadership roles, your AP classes, your SAT prep, your college applications, your ROTC applications, your nomination interviews is all going to be coming to a precipice. And third, DODMERB. You can't start DODMERB until you get the majority of applications done. So like I said earlier, so the earlier you start, the quicker you can get medically cleared. The longer you wait, and then you might need to go see a doctor and get something done. If you wait until the day before your application is due, that's January 30th for most of the academies. They're due January 31st, drop dead deadline. Okay, that means you get hung up in a medical waiver in February or March, and they're going to give out waiver decisions by April 15th. Try going and seeing a doctor in less than a month that you've never seen before, and you got to get a second opinion. Very unlikely. Or try getting it in, then getting the paperwork, and then submitting it. You submit it the day before it's due, but the decision has already been decided. Okay, so you're behind the 8 ball. Don't wait until the day before it's due. Maximize your chances by turning it in early. So yes, I'm asking you to do, on top of everything else you have to do, I'm also asking you to turn it in early, or you may disqualify yourself. And then the number one enemy you have is not knowing what to focus on next, because you have so little time and you've never done this before. You have a lot of competing priorities: sports, clubs, SAT prep, AP classes. Applying to the academy is a full-time job in and of itself. Time management with all the competing priorities in sports, school, extracurricular activities, leadership positions, only 24 hours in a day. What do you prioritize? What's the sequencing? What do you do first, second, third? And then comparison. How do I even compare versus the other applicants? How do I know how I stack up? What do I do to make myself more competitive? And what do I do first, second, third? So where do I go from here, Travis? Okay, I'm going to tell you what we do for clients, and then I'm going to show you the big rocks and what I think you can focus on if you were to do this on your own. First, what we do for clients. We give them the Academy Endeavors workbook, online course, takes you through 400 line items and 20 tabs that if you put your head down, and then we meet with them at every gate in this process. And we have Academy Endeavors boot camp, which takes them through every detail, 454 line items. At the end of all that is usually an appointment, gives them the roadmap. Now, what do we suggest if you're doing this on your own? How do you possibly get through this process when you've never navigated it yourself? These are the 7 rocks, big rocks, that you need to move in this process. Official applications open, call it by July 1st. Okay. And these are the things I would prioritize in this order. Activities and classes is a must. You got to get the right activities and get in the right classes. That's been going on since freshman year. If you're a freshman or sophomore and you're listening to this, that's where you are right now. You're building your application to be as competitive as possible. Okay. You're building your candidacy to be as competitive as possible. Okay. SAT, it's the most important aspect to the candidate score. We got to get that right. Okay, that's got to be the next baby step. All right, your essays. You formulate your essays first before interview prep. When you get clear on how you write, the next step is you can get clear on how you speak. One feeds into the other. Do the essays first, then the interviews. CFA, you should be doing mocks back here. You should be doing mock CFAs right away, but performing the CFA can happen next. Nomination, okay? You'll be notified by January 31st if you got the nomination. The fall is when the deadlines are. All right. But you want to be doing your essays and interviews first. That's part of the nomination application before you submit. And then DODMERB. So those are the 7 big rocks you must move. Okay. So here's my question to you. Only 10% get the appointment. For many of you, this is your dream and has been for a long time. What are you going to do differently than the other 90%? What are you willing to do that others aren't willing to do? How are you going to play this game differently to win? I show you this on the screen, okay? This is the timeline, as you can tell, that looks familiar above. Below is how we structure our clients, how we meet with them, 4 meetings here, how we have Academy Endeavors Bootcamp to set them up for turning in by August 31st. Then we do a post-bootcamp inspection after boot camp's over, and then we follow up through the fall as needed, and we provide DODMERB waiver support all the way through to April 15th. We do mock CFAs all the way through medical record reviews. This is how we structure it to align with getting everything done in a high quality manner, maximizing competitiveness, the chance of being qualified, and turning it in early. Before we get to Q&A, what are we going to do tonight? We said we had some free giveaways. First, in your inbox, by the time you get off this call, we'll have a link to download the Academy Endeavors CFA workout plan to get you started with fitness prep. Second, interview guides for West Point, Naval Academy, and Air Force Academy interviews. So you have the tools to prepare for those. Third, the DODMERB questionnaire. So you can start to self-diagnose and see where you're at. Chipping away at this process, giving you some tools to be successful. All right. And lastly, we have a link so you can schedule a one-on-one with us. Okay. You can take the next step tonight. We're inviting you to take the next step to consider, as a family, joining our program. If you are a high school junior, we have a coaching program that guides applicants through the entire application process from start to finish. Okay. We only take 50 families per year. We have 25 signed up. We've sold out our first 4 cohorts, and we're almost sold out with our 5th one. So space is limited, filling up. We will fill up by May timeframe. So the choice is yours. It's a free call. Ask your questions and consider taking the next step. We have a couple different options, but the Pro is the flagship program. All right. If you're on this call and you're a high school freshman or sophomore, or a parent of a high school freshman or sophomore, we have an underclass program that's designed for high school freshmen and sophomores who are all in with attending a service academy. Okay. And we focus on preparing students for this complex, crazy process. And that also is about half full. And we're inviting you to consider joining Academy Endeavors and going through our underclass program. I'm not kidding. I told you our success rate earlier for high school juniors for the pro program was 83%. For underclassmen that started with us from freshman and sophomore year and continued with us all the way through end of senior year, every single one of them has gotten into the academy. It's just the God's truth. It was an honor and privilege to share with you guys tonight. I graduated from the academy in 2007. I'm extremely thankful for what the academy has given me. The prestigious education, the transformational relationships. Academy Endeavors is one of the ways that I can give back. Thanks for listening tonight. You guys have been great. Now let's transition to Q&A. Ask your questions in the chat, and we will not finish until every question's been answered. And that's my commitment to you. I will stay on, and Tori will stay on until every question's been answered. First question from Grant: how does a homeschool student get English and math teacher recommendations? So for English and math recommendations, I'm going to assume you're 11th grader, you're going into 12th grade. Most English and math recommendations, the academies require 11th or 12th grade teachers. Okay. So for those that are homeschooled and they're taking 11th or 12th grade math, usually they're taking an AP calculus class by that point, and they're doing it online with an instructor. In that case, that would be the teacher you ask for a recommendation. Some, but very few parents actually teach AP calculus, because usually by the time you're a parent, you've forgotten more calculus than you remember. If it is a parent, then your parent does it. But the likelihood is by that point, you're taking an AP Lit or an AP Lang class or an AP Calc class. It's not a parent. So you're asking your online instructor. Hope that helps, Grant. I want to attend USAFA, Tyler asks, and become a pilot. Does getting my pilot's license beforehand help me at all? So Tyler, if we go back to the framework in the extracurricular activities, it talks about leadership roles, okay? But it also mentions significant personal achievements. And one of the significant personal achievements is PPL, getting your private pilot's license, okay? See those personal achievements there. Eagle Scout's a personal achievement. Gold Award's a personal achievement. For that matter, any sort of academic award, any sort of award, being nominated for Hobie Leadership Seminar. These are just off the top of my head, but private pilot's license would fall under that category. Boys State would fall under that category. If you get into Boys State or Girls State, that's significant. And even though I didn't address it in the leadership roles, because we had so much to talk about with leadership, significant personal achievements also matter. And yes, getting your private pilot's license would score points for you. Abdullah asks, are there any differences in the application for those applying in college through ROTC than in high school? Great question, Abdullah. Yes, there are a few differences. As a college student, you will not get an LOA, most likely, for turning it in early. Why? Because they're going to wait for your college transcript to finalize by January. Second, you will have to redo, I don't know if you're a reapplicant or not, but they will ask for new recommendations, and you can ask a professor at your college. Okay, so that's a nice feature. You can ask an English professor, a chemistry professor, a calculus professor in college. All right. Also, since you're in ROTC, you are eligible for an ROTC nomination. That's another nomination source on top of your congressman or your senator or the vice president. That's huge. And it's a signature. It's as simple as a signature from your ROTC commander. Okay. So that is also very valuable. Also, your ROTC commander can write a letter of recommendation in addition to the professors I was talking about earlier. So there is a lot of advantages to, if you're a high school student and you don't get in the first time, go to college and then reapply as a ROTC applicant. Your chances will be significantly higher for the things I just mentioned. I would also recommend you go online right now to the Academy Endeavors YouTube channel and you type in reapply Academy Endeavors. We have an acronym called Reapply, and we walk through REAPPLY, the strategy to reapply and get accepted. And it's for college freshmen. Okay, it's a great video for that. So that's what I would suggest. Edmund, hello, sir. I'm a junior and I'm a homeschooler. What are the major changes for us? Because your transcript is most likely non-traditional, you don't have a class rank, right? Maybe your parents taught half the classes. Because it's non-traditional, your SAT or ACT score in the framework is going to matter more. So you're going to have to get an SAT prep and hit that even harder and earlier than a typical applicant would. The other challenge that you're going to have, or that most homeschoolers have, is how to get athletic activities and how to get extracurricular activities. How are you going to maximize your leadership points? And so we work a lot with homeschoolers on like doing a 360 assessment on their resume, knowing your strengths and weaknesses, making firm recommendations with milestones, and coming up with a 12 to 24 month plan as to how you can maximize this. Something that people don't realize, guys, listen up. I didn't say this in the presentation. The academies allow projected achievements to go on your resume. So for example, if you're turning it in early senior year, but you project that you will be a varsity baseball player your senior year, you can take credit for that as a projected achievement. Okay? Because otherwise all spring athletes would have a disadvantage over fall athletes, right? Okay. In the same way, if you project that your commander has already given you a verbal, and you project that you're going to be the Silver Air Patrol Cadet Commander second semester of your senior year, the academies will allow you to put projected achievements on your application. Otherwise, all senior year would just be not for naught, right? Okay. So now the way they do an integrity check on that is they ask your guidance counselor to verify your extracurricular activities. So you can't just make stuff up, right? Because they're going to ask someone at the local level to verify that and do an integrity check. All right. But at the same time, you don't want to shortchange yourself. So yes, Edmund, even though you're a junior and you have 6 months until you turn it in, you actually have 18 months until you graduate high school, or 15 months or 16 months. And so imagine what your resume can look like then. All right. Don't not go after something just because you can't get it in 6 months. There's a longer time horizon. Elizabeth asked, any suggestions for navigating the rebuttal phase of medical if an LOA has already been given? Elizabeth, it sounds like you're a senior, so this presentation wasn't necessarily directed at you. Essentially, to rebut or appeal a medical waiver decision, you must have additional medical information. There has to be some additional medical evidence to form a basis for the appeal. And it has to be new medical information. It can't just be redundant. Okay? They will receive all medical records that you give, but it's not going to change the medical decision most likely unless it's new. Okay? It's a new MRI, it's a new bone scan, it's a new blood test, it's a new eval from a different specialist, etc. And you're at the stage now where you're just waiting for a medical decision, and you're probably in the waiver purgatory, as I like to say. And so you're going to have to be patient for that decision to come through. Okay, Janelle asked, how is weight training not a benefit? I mentioned earlier that if you're in the weight room and you're lifting heavy weights, potentially you're actually hurting yourself rather than helping. The Academy's cadet fitness assessment or candidate fitness assessment is a measure of endurance, right? So if you're bulking up, you're hurting yourself. If I try to max my bench press, I'm hurting my pull-ups. And so the best way to get good at the CFA is to do the damn CFA, not be bulking up in the weight room. And sometimes sports are a hindrance in some ways to that. Cameron asked, if someone has an IEP, is it an automatic disqualifier to secure a nomination? And also, does it affect a person's ability to be approved for an ROTC scholarship to a college? So is an IEP an automatic disqualifier? No, the regulation says, and I'll pull it up right now so I can quote it directly, but IEPs are not an automatic disqualifier unless it's after a certain age. Okay, so if you have history of learning disorder after the 14th birthday, or you have ADHD after the 14th birthday, and you are on an IEP after the 14th birthday, then yes, it's an automatic disqualifier and you're in need of a waiver. And yes, it would affect your ability to get an ROTC scholarship because you have to get a medical waiver now to get an ROTC scholarship or to get an academy appointment. But DODMERB covers academies and ROTCs, both. Now, you can still get a waiver. That waiver is going to be determined by your medical situation. Everybody's medical situation is a little bit different, but the waivers are determined based on your severity, based on your recency, based on if it's permanent or chronic or if it's temporary. Those are three major factors in whether they give waivers. And also just flat out, what does the medical record say? Not what do you say, what do you think, but what is the actual doctor saying? Would a maxed out CFA be needed to offset the lack of a varsity sport? That would be a hell of a way to go. Yes, maxed out CFA would significantly help. Would it make up entirely for the athletic activity score? No. For the gap there, only sports can make that better directly, but it does provide a 360-degree picture of your fitness. Once again, when you have a ding in one area, everything else has to be better. Christina, could you touch on what a summer seminar is? Is this more important than boys and girls state? Your junior year, you can apply to summer seminar. Right now, Naval Academy and West Point and Coast Guard Academy are all open right now. They're open for that window in February, March timeframe, and then you find out by April. And then you attend over the summer going into your senior year. What is it? It's 1 week of an immersive experience where you are treated as if you're a cadet and you are on the grounds of the academy. It's a great way to verify your interest, to confirm whether you really want to do this or not. Okay? It has no bearing on admissions. It doesn't give you any more points in the competitive triangle. Okay? But it does, in terms of your story, your interviewing, and your essays, it can provide credible enthusiasm to serve, like we talked about earlier. Is it more important than boys state? No, because boys and girls state in that competitive triangle, going back to extracurricular activities, it fits in the personal achievements, significant personal achievements. Getting into boys and girls state is very selective and very recognizable. Do the academies have ways of translating curriculums which aren't AP? I take the IB curriculum. Good question. IB, yes, they do. They see those. They see international applications. We've had international applicants. We've had IB. We've had international clients. We've had IB curriculum. They do have a way in their algorithm of converting all that over. IB, AP, dual enrollment, honors, it's all in the advanced bucket. It's all treated as advanced. Those are great classes to have. And so, yes, they do, because they get international applicants every year. So they have to have a way of doing that. If you happen to fail the first CFA, can you take it again? Yes, you can. Going back to the CFA, these 6 events, if you fail one of them, and you fail the official CFA, so let's say you're at summer seminar and they do the official CFA at summer seminar for Navy and West Point, by the way. Okay, so you better be ready to go. They take the official CFA and you fail it, they will send you a notification saying you failed, and they will give you a certain amount of time to retake it. If you do not pass that next time, you're done. They close your application. But yes, they give you a chance to retake it. They give you one time, another chance. Now, here's what I suggest. If you take it at home with a PE teacher or coach and you fail it, let's say you were sick and you can't even finish your run, you're throwing up or whatever, or you DQ it, then tell the administrator that you'd like to meet them the following week and try it again. And the administrator just won't submit it into the official application. Remember, the administrator, whoever it is, the PE teacher, the coach, the military officer, they're going to be the ones submitting your scores. Tell them you're scratching your score and you'd like to do it again. Okay? Don't submit a score unless you're proud of it. Will a C+ in freshman year honors biology be a big deal? I'm currently a junior. I've gotten an A in honors chemistry, an A in physics, and plan to take AP physics and aerospace engineering. So besides that, my grades in science have been pretty good. It will be looked at, but because it's freshman year, it's still a ding because you're competing against some applicants that have never got a B in their life. It's just all A's. I've seen these transcripts. They're like flawless. It's incredible how smart some people are that you're going up against. But at the same time, freshman year is better than sophomore year. And sophomore year is better than junior year. Recency is considered. So if you're trending up, that's part of the story. Now, I'd also advise that you possibly use an optional essay to explain your situation. If you had an extenuating circumstance, we like to use personal statements or optional essays to explain a ding so that at least we're owning it, but also telling the story. But big deal is relative. Yes, it's going to be a ding compared to other people that have a flawless transcript, but all things considered, lesser than it could have been. Brooke, will not needing any medical waivers make you more likely to get an appointment? No, it's not competitive. Remember, Medical is not competitive, it's qualified. That's where the framework comes in handy. It's not in this competitive triangle, it's in the qualification. George asks, if I cannot attend one of the Academy's summer leadership programs, which other ones would you recommend? I would recommend Boys State, Girls State. And then if not, I would recommend hitting the SAT prep hard over the summer and getting a head start on all of this so that you can get your applications in early. I would not recommend anything else unless maybe you were in Civil Air Patrol and you needed encampment, or you were in JROTC and you needed CLC, or you were in SEA Cadets and you needed SEA recruit training or something. If it's not something you absolutely need, then it's Boys State, Girls State, Academy Summer Seminar, and SAT prep hard. And then you're getting a fast track on your applications. That's what I recommend. I have a freshman who's highly motivated. What service do you provide for freshmen that is not already readily available? Good question. We recommend the underclass program. It's not readily available because no one else does it. It's only us. It's a coaching program. We do a individualized plan. We follow up quarterly. We develop a 360 assessment on your son or daughter, and we see results. And we hold them accountable to those because it's their dream. Is JROTC or CAP better in the eyes of the selection committee? They're the same. JROTC and Civil Air Patrol are the same. They both prove an intrinsic motivation to serve. Most likely you can't do both. Biggest difference is JROTC is through school and Civil Air Patrol is out in the community. I think of Civil Air Patrol as Boy Scouts for the Air Force. I think of JROTC as more like ROTC, but in high school. They're the same. They have a rank structure. They indoctrinate you into the military culture. And then you asked, would pilot be better because you're in CAP? So JROTC and CAP both have actually paths to get hours. CAP has more readily available flying than JROTC. So probably in that case, if pilot in the Air Force is where you're leaning, then I would go Civil Air Patrol. Is there any merit to taking the ACT if you already have an SAT score above the mean? It depends what grade you're in, but probably not. If you have an SAT score above the mean that you're proud of, if you've maxed it out, if you can look yourself in the mirror and say, there is no way I could get a better score than this, then congratulations, you're above the mean and you can live with a rejection letter because you know you've maxed that part of it out, then good on you. Otherwise, I would take the SAT again. Because think about it, super scoring, you can only super score across dates of the same test. Therefore, I would specialize in one and keep taking it. Okay. Now, if you were struggling, if someone out there is struggling with the SAT and they're like, man, I just feel like I'm just not getting anywhere, I would switch tests. We've had clients, they just couldn't even crack 1200. I had one client who, it was a rare case. We took her on. Now we have a qualification. You have to hit a 1250 before you sign up with us. She was at, I think, 1170, and she switched over to the ACT, and she got 100 points higher on the ACT than she did the SAT just by switching tests. So it's something to consider if you're struggling. Ask, if I do not get a nomination and go to college in a different state, will I be seeking a nomination from the state I attended college or high school? You will not be seeking nomination from college. You will be seeking it from where you reside, where you go to high school, where you went to high school, where your parents reside. Okay, because that's still your home of record. You're still a resident of the state you grew up in, even though you attend college somewhere else, unless you somehow establish residency in that new state, which is very rare, right? That's why if you go to a state, out-of-state school, you're paying out-of-state tuition because you're not a resident there. So yes, you would be going back to your hometown to seek a nomination. Does having glasses an automatic disqualifier? No. Our Academy Endeavors clients are starting now. They're starting on essay prep now. They're starting an interview prep now. They're starting the process now. They're doing mock CFAs now. They're doing medical record reviews now. Why? So that when the Academy applications open, they're ready. Then we do Academy Endeavors Bootcamp and get it all over the finish line. Yes, it is hard to navigate on your own. That's why we have what we have. Why I'm saying senior year is for what I just said. Because when you get in here, it's incredibly chaotic. And so you want to get as much done over the summer as you can. And ideally lean forward on it before the Academy applications even open. I'm a junior and recently decided I want to go to USAFA. Any suggestions for leadership positions that I would be able to get into quickly? Brooke, that's almost impossible to answer. I don't know where you go to school. I don't know what the opportunities are in your local area. But on a call, we could dive into that. But in general, I'm looking at what available sports are there and what sports have team captains that you're interested in, that you like. Okay, here's another framework that we didn't talk about. But when you're choosing extracurricular activities. You want to choose ones you're passionate about, ideally, ones you're proficient in, and ones that are attractive to academies. And that's your ideal activities. Okay, so I'd be looking at what are you passionate about, what are you proficient in, what are attractive to the academies. Then what are the opportunities that are available to you? Okay, and then I could give you all day, like, but if I just spitball things, I'm going to just say Civil Air Patrol, JROTC, but you don't even have JROTC and Civil Air Patrol is 2 hours away, then it means nothing. But this presentation is to give you the framework so that you can think clearly about these things. Just to clarify, my daughter is 14 right now, and we've been talking to her doctor about getting off her ADHD medication this summer. At this point, we will be required to get a medical waiver. So ADHD, if it's in the medical record and you have an IEP that accompanies it after the 14th birthday, a history of any comorbidity, mental disorders, any prescribed medication in the previous 24 months from the date of the DODMERB exam, which would be your senior year, and any documentation of any adverse academic performance. That would be qualification for disqualification. That would mean you're disqualified. And DODMERB is very by the book. If you get off of the IEP before the 14th birthday, if you have an IEP, then you would not be disqualified. Okay? And if you don't have any medication in the previous 24 months, which I don't see how you would be, because once again, 24 months is from the date of the DODMERB exam, which will be your senior year, then I think you're borderline. I think it just depends on those questions. Is it required to take the CFA and summer seminar? I answered that. It's only for Navy and West Point that you take the summer seminar, not Air Force. Are the CFA and academic requirements different for prep schools compared to service academies? No, it's all one application. The same application applies to prep schools. They are pulling out prep school acceptance letters are going to people that are from that same applicant pool. It's the same application. You can't apply separately to prep school. Okay? You apply to the academy, and then they make determination. They pull out of that applicant pool those that go to prep school.